Okay, the gospel reading this morning is taken from Mark chapter 7, entitled The Tradition of the Elders. Now, when the Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus, they noticed that some of the disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands, thus observing the tradition of the elders. And they do not eat anything from the market unless they wash it. And there are also many other traditions that they observe: the washing of cups, pots, and bronze kettles. So the Pharisees and the scribes asked Jesus, "Why do your disciples not live according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" Jesus said to them, "Isaiah prophesied rightly about you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precepts as doctrines. You abandon the commandment of God and hold to human tradition.'" And I want you to understand that in following the traditions that you were raised, many of which have separated you from God. And what did we trade in exchange for these traditions? We traded our trust. We trusted in the people who said, "This is how we do things, and you would be wise to follow suit with us." Now, it's not expressed that clearly. But when you try to outgrow the traditions of the elders who raised you, you will see that they will experience that as a betrayal. It's a betrayal to what they hold sacred. And it's an interesting term to go, well, we hold secrecy sacred, or we hold a certain type of control to be sacred, or we hold a certain type of righteousness to be sacred, and so should you. And I betrayed my trust by believing that. And I grew up for 10, 20, 30, 40 years believing in certain traditions. And I sacrificed my truth. So you could say that I was betrayed. Now, I know that we don't want to hate the people who raised us, and I'm not suggesting that we do, but we do have to hate certain traditions because they're killing you. On a real spiritual path, we don't follow traditions. We create patterns, and we check in periodically to see if those patterns are still working. Because the patterns of the mystical church in Jesus' time would not be applicable entirely to the patterns of today. Because, well, for one thing, we have electricity. So if we said, well, the tradition is to sit in a room with no electricity, part of us would go, well, it's cold, or it's too hot, or there's no light, and why are we doing this? Well, it's just the tradition. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? When you look at it that way. And here the Pharisees are going, "Why do your disciples eat with defiled hands?" I mean, that is such an accusatory statement. Believing that if you do not follow the traditions that we know to be true, because Moses passed them on to us, your people are now defiled. And Jesus doesn't even answer the question of the hands. He goes, "Isaiah prophesied correctly about you. You're hypocrites. Because you stand in this firm idea that your traditions are good, of God, and yet you don't have any connection with the Spirit. Because if you had a connection with the Spirit, you would recognize that the traditions that you are following are not based in truth and love. Some of them may be, but many of them are complete lies. They cost you your life, actually. And so we wake up on the path 20, 30, 40 years into it, and these patterns, these traditions, we're actually perpetuating them on to the next generation. We're teaching them inadvertently because, well, that's what a tradition does. It doesn't ask you to question it. It just says, this is how we do it, and this is how we always have done it, and so this is how you will do it. And this is how you should do it. And what did you take from the person in exchange for that? You took their trust because they trusted in you. Well, that's a painful day to wake up, especially if you have kids, and realize I did teach these traditions by my action, by my words, by my beliefs. This week in Bible class, we talked about how, what is this part of me that I'm not happy with trying to accomplish? So if a part of me is following a tradition, a lot of that is because I'm still trying to please the ones I wish to be loyal to. And that creates a tremendous conflict within. When my rational and reasoning side that has been made new in Christ goes, I don't think this is right. I don't think I should be doing this. And yet another part of me goes like, I must fulfill the tradition to those who love me. Wow, huge dilemma. Huge. So what ends up happening is that pressure gets siphoned to, and something that many of us are familiar with, to a way of escape. Because I know that I cannot make sense of this conflict. I know that I'm not living in accord with my truth, but I must be loyal to those who love me, right? So as opposed to making the difficult decision to betray those who love me, and I put that in quotes because it's not love, but we have registered it as such, we have to escape. And how do we escape? Well, many of us have chosen alcohol as a way to escape. Because what does alcohol do? It creates a distance between us and our true feelings. When we remove alcohol, that heightened sense of truth is unavoidable. And when you have no path, and you have no teacher, and you have no community, that pressure is unbearable. So the alcohol alleviates the pressure. So to whatever degree you have found alcohol to be a pressure reliever, whether it's now or in the past, this should be an indication to what degree the tradition of your elders has not been in accord with your truth. Now that's a difficult wake-up to go, well, what do I do now? Well, that's up to you. I mean, what's more important to you? Your personal truth and the expression of your love, or pleasing those who are your elders? We seek to put God in the position of our ultimate elder. That's who we want to please. We next go to Jesus and Mary and we go, you guys demonstrated as human beings the highest level of consciousness that you can bring to the earth, and we want to follow that. So I guess we're going to go with your example. So then there's a big reorganization when you begin to examine the traditions and to what degree these have created patterns of behavior that are hypocritical. They're not in accord with truth and love. But to be fair to ourselves, we go, we are doing them. Why? Well, remember the law of cause and effect. You cannot do anything without there being an effect that you are seeking. The cause that drives you to do something is always driven by the desire for an effect. Even if you go like, well, I'm going to do something totally random, there is an effect. You're trying to go, I'm going to show you that this is not actually accurate. It's a weird kind of puzzle. But the human being is programmed to do things according to reason. There is a reason that I do them. So as you begin to see the behaviors that you do, and the ways that you think, and the ways that you constrict yourself, because it's very difficult for you to truly live in your truth, because your truth creates pressure upon the traditions of your elders. When you really begin to see that, you're faced with a difficult choice. Who am I going to be loyal to? And there's a much greater reward on this earth for being loyal to our elders, because that's what's expected of us. And that's what 99% of the people are doing. Even if they think they're rebelling against, you watch your children rebel when they get into their 20s or their teens. They think they're rebelling against you and the orders you put down. But you'll see that they're actually being very loyal to them, which is, when you have that sight, you can see that even their rejection of you is a loyalty to the patterns that you have taught them. I know that maybe that sounds weird, but you'll see it. When you are detached from your emotions about how their behaviors are affecting you, you begin to see the seeds of the ways that you taught them. Now I understand, I want to be compassionate that can be cringy to see that. But before we found a real path, how could we do anything but? Very, very difficult to do anything but what we were taught to do, because We gave our trust. That was the trade. I trust you, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, whatever. Show me the way, and I will follow. And in sharing with me during your retrospections, I mean, the places where you know that you betrayed the truth in order to maintain the family loyalty, that's a hard pill to swallow. Okay. So, as the expression goes, does the buck stop here? Do we stop perpetuating the traditions of the elders that are based in things that don't make sense anymore? Maybe they never made sense. Some of them might have made sense. But you'll see that the mystical Church of Christ will evolve according to who shows up and what building we're in and the time of the year. And we will move and the patterns will change because we don't want to get lodged in tradition. So, well, you meditate, that's probably an age-old tradition. Well, meditation works. So call it a tradition or call it truth. Meditation is a process that works. See, that energy that wants to go, yes, but you see, you're actually doing the very thing that you're saying not to do. That's what the Pharisees are saying, right? They don't want the truth to be true, because if it is true, they have to surrender their traditions and go, well, what do we do? Now, some of them did. Some of them went, Lord, you have the words of truth, so what do we do? And he says, follow. You know, a lot of the songs are talking about surrendering to Jesus, and they put Jesus as the forefront. And I want you to understand that even if you sing that and you go, I'm not sure that quite resonates with me. You know, this is the beauty of the Christian path. Probably all real paths, is that singing to Jesus works for some people because they're not doing the work to find the Christ. Anytime you hear singing to Jesus, you could substitute the Christ and go, the Christ, I surrender all to the Christ in me, to the truth in me, to the God in me. And so then you can relax and go, I'm not a Jesus freak, I'm not a weirdo. I'm just like, I'm approaching it from a different level. But I love the fact that way works for a lot of people, because what if it didn't? You know, at least it gives some people a foundation. It's like, I trust in Jesus, I do things through Jesus. Okay, well, that's great. If that keeps you on the straight and narrow, that's good. I want something deeper. I want something that resonates with my entire soul. And so I'm not going to just accept something that I cannot experience, because I don't know how to go through Jesus the man. You know, we talked about this almost in a joking way. But I do know how to go through Christ. I run my life through Christ, and that filters out all the impurities. Right? In other words, I bring everything to that place of Christ, and through that process, the truth is shown to me. And we have to be impartial to our own emotional process in order to see the truth. Right? Because if part of me goes like, well, how's my mom going to feel? Or my dad always said this, and my brother's this way, and I don't want to hurt people, and I don't want to, rock the boat. Okay, so as long as that's too strong for you, this path is going to be excruciatingly difficult, because it's going to put you at odds against your truth and the truth of others that you're trying to preserve. And that's okay. I mean, we're not going to pressure you if that's not what you want. But if you put your hand up and go, no, I do want to be moved through that, then there is a tearing away from the old, from the tradition. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage, because people will not support it. And then if you turn around and try to get people to separate from their traditions, they will, as the passage goes, they will stomp on you. They will curse that which you say. I mean, how does it go? If you throw your pearls before swine, they will bite you and then they will trample them and then turn around and bite you. Okay? So we're not going to impose this. The only reason I'm bringing it up with some intensity today is because we've got to be free from these traditions. We've got to see tradition as a form of betrayal. I'm betraying the truth of this moment because somebody told me this is how we do it. No. I want you to know how to do it from within. And until you get that confidently set and you do that daily, then you are going to have to trust in somebody. You're going to have to trust either a priest or some elder. So that's kind of like, yeah. That's the pattern. That's the correct pattern. If our parents had been connected in God, they wouldn't have imposed traditions of dysfunction upon us to preserve our pride. and to maintain a level of fear in order to be protective against everything, they wouldn't have done that if they were doing the work. Okay, well, we love them because maybe at that time it wasn't practical, or there wasn't teachers, or they weren't interested in it. Most people still aren't interested in it. But you guys are interested in it. And so don't be surprised that you are forced to choose between the traditions of your elders and the patterns of truth and love. And yes, that's difficult, but it's very possible. You know, the thing that makes this difficult is the emotional attachment to these people of our past. We still want the crumbs of their love. Okay? We still want them to see us as good people. Why do we give so much power to people who are so far from truth? Well, we were trained. We were trained to. You know, it's really excruciating, and the whole pressure of the family on this earth is really out of proportion, which I believe is why Jesus said, I came to bring a sword to separate that. And unless you hate father and mother, meaning like he had to be intense and go, people, this frickin' family loyalty is constricting you. Like you're being choked to death. But as you go down with no air, you're going, at least I'm loving them. I mean, are you even loving them? By allowing them to perpetuate these traditions? I don't think so. So begin to think of tradition not as something so valuable, unless it works. Unless it is aligned with truth and love, the tradition should be examined. And you'll need the courage to go, I'm not going to do this. And the courage to communicate to people, I'm not going to do this. And, well, why? We've always done it. Well, that's not a good enough reason for me anymore, because we've always done it. It hasn't felt good to me. I mean, I think about something like getting together for Thanksgiving, right? It's like, well, we've always done it this way. And how many people, if they really had to go and do a little private essay, right, what I truly feel about our Thanksgiving tradition, what would you read? Well, there's, you know, I don't mind this and that, but I mean, this is, I'm just wishing, it's always, In other words, it's not really something that I love and look forward to. But I do it because I guess that's what everybody wants. You know, you'll see when we do Thanksgiving, this will be our first Thanksgiving with an actual community here, you know, if we end up doing something. It's going to be what works. You know, it's not going to be we have to have, I mean, I like having the turkey and all that business, you know, but I don't care if there's cranberries and frickin' stuffing and all that. I mean, like, what, if somebody wants to make it, that's great. If they don't, I don't care. You know, I mean, I know it's going to be a good meal because we make food with love here. That's one of our traditions. You know, I mean, we want to prepare the food with love and care, but we don't want to create this crazy all-day endeavor where it's like, oh my God, 7 hours later we get to sit down and eat like horses. You know what I mean? Why don't we just casually, you know, get our stuff, sit down, hang out, whatever, and then eat, and then, you know, chat a little bit and call it a night, you know? Thanksgiving. So I like to joke about these things because I don't want them to be horrific. I don't want them to, like 3 months in advance, I have to start planning when I'm going to get a turkey. I mean, get it the night before, for God's sakes. Break the tradition, people. All right, I think we've said enough.